So again, we have 4 scenarios affectionately called A, B, C, and D at this point in time. And so I'm going to run through those with you. So the first scenario that we are thinking of is doing more of the same. It's based on your current zoning that you have in place right now, as well as the growth projections that are out for 20 years, so to 2040. It includes committed development that are either in process, have permits, have plats approved, but they're moving forward in the county's traditional process. They may be slowed down by APFO or not, depending where they are, but it's a 4-year slowdown and we're looking out 20 years. So we're assuming that these pipeline projects would be built within a 20-year time frame. The downtown master plan for Columbia is as presented. So that's an adopted document. And so we're just moving that forward and representing it in our scenario. The gateway area would continue to develop, but do so as it is right now. So lower profile buildings, non-residential, and really just filling in the missing pieces that are in the gateway district. And then the remaining growth potential in the scenario is actually less than the information that we presented to you in the physical assessments. Remember, there was a market analysis that was done, or really a trends analysis that was done, and it actually said the county could have demand for more housing and more non-residential square footage that can actually fit in this scenario. So that's kind of the high level stuff. What you see in the map in green are the preserved areas. They're already preserved. We haven't identified new areas to preserve at this point in time. The areas in kind of the yellowish gold, brown, tan color are developed areas right now within the county. The 2 dots you see for downtown Columbia and Gateway would show those being activity centers. You see little pieces of red all through the county. Those are vacant, unprotected parcels right now. And so whatever their zoning is what they might become. The little black and gray dots that you see throughout the map, those are the committed development projects that we have in the database. And so you can see where they're spread out. And then we have a couple of activity centers like Emerson and Maple Lawn that would continue to grow. But this is pretty much the business the way you do it now and just taking it out for the 20 years. Scenario B is a second option that would be put out for the workshop. Now, this is really looking at the Plan Howard 2030 document that we have. And those of you who read it and know it really well, you know that there were a lot of ideas in there, but there sometimes were not the specifics, like the future land use map or some things allowed some flexibility in them. And so this scenario is tying some things down in order to measure impacts. So again, you have the same green for preserved and the yellow tan for developed, the same gray dots or the same committed development that we have around. Here we're contemplating different types of, again, we're using the term activity centers, and we heard your comment back on that. But we're looking at what we call regional activity centers, so things that attract people from Howard County and beyond, which might be like downtown Columbia as well as the Gateway area. Community centers, which would be candidate development areas along Route 1, or Emerson or Turf Valley or Maple Lawn. To a lesser extent, the village centers that are in the Columbia area would see redevelopment, but obviously more modest because of their size and what's going on in some of those. We have little white dots that you can make out in some areas of the county, which are more neighborhood type areas that would not really have a lot of residential in them, but maybe provide some of the services to nearby neighborhoods. You don't have to drive quite as far or travel quite as far to meet your daily needs. And then you see what are kind of established communities, which would be Ellicott City, Elkridge, and Savage. And we called those out special and different because we're not expecting them to, transform or be something totally different, but they probably do need to be strengthened and protected. And so that would happen in this scenario as well. You see that there's also some lines, Route 40, US 1, Snowman-Dobbin corridor, and the like that are highlighted as growth corridors. That coincides with the growth and revitalization areas that are in the Plan Howard 2030 document right now. And this scenario we anticipate would have enough capacity to meet the growth projections that were in that market and trends analysis that we presented to you last time. Scenario C is a new idea. This isn't grounded in either zoning or Plan Howard 2030, but this is an idea about maybe creating more compact urban centers and what that means in terms of protecting the character of other areas of the county and letting them remain more of how they are today in exchange for really investing in a discrete number of areas. Downtown Columbia, in this scenario, Gateway would be a major redevelopment area. You see the dot of equal size to downtown Columbia here. We look at the potential of the MARC stations along the Camden line and see what opportunities might exist along there. And then the yellow lines that you see would be what's called bus rapid transit, BRT. And those would be premium transit corridors that would hopefully be able to efficiently move people between these more urban areas and urban centers. If you're going to build the line, there are also opportunities to have stations along it for focused development that could be served by the premium transit. There's also in this concept an idea of land preservation through density exchange. So some of you may be aware that there's a significant amount of land within Howard County that could re-subdivide by right. I think some of you were alluding to that earlier in our conversations. If that were to occur, instead of that happening and seeing neighborhoods kind of change, this scenario would allow that to be exchanged and that density moved into these urban centers and would be a way to kind of protect the character of some of the more suburban neighborhoods within the county. This concept would allow us to meet and potentially even absorb the additional, remember we talked about the pent-up demand in the market and trends analysis. There's more growth that would love to come here if Howard County would let it. And this scenario would be able to accommodate that if the county so chose to. And the fourth and last scenario that we have as a concept is really not a new idea, but it's combining all of the growth ideas from the previous concepts. So this is the most aggressive concept to grow. We did hear from some members of the community that they just would love to grow, and they think that's really the next future of Howard County is to grow tremendously. As part of that, we kind of call this sort of our sprawl scenario. I know some of you may have heard that term earlier with more low density and single use type things, but while these are mixed use, they're being spread all over the county, and so therefore having to travel and those kind of things do have some sprawl-like tendencies, and so that's why we added that tag here. We also looked in the West in this scenario of maybe we look at different density caps that are in place right now and see whether we can get more units in the West. Maybe instead of the 4.25 acres per lot that's in the RC zoning right now, maybe it's 2 acres per lot. What does that mean? We're still doing the math to figure out whether these policy changes really unlock a tremendous amount of growth or not, but it's an idea being thought about in this concept. The corridors and the activity centers from Plan Howard 2030 come in here, as well as all the different parcels left to be built per the zoning. And this would meet and potentially be able to also accommodate some of that pent-up demand that was noted in the consultant report presented at our last meeting.
You won't be surprised to hear me raise this, but I think the missing scenario is the no-growth scenario. Mm-hmm. And I only raise that not because I support that scenario, but I think it would be important to evaluate it so that that can be measured and looked at by those in the community who might support no growth, and see what I would think would be a negative impact on the community if that were to occur.
Yeah.
So that would be because we really have the current, which is A, and then 3 other scenarios which would be more growth than we currently have. And I think there's a segment of the community that would want less. And so I think we're missing that analysis for that scenario.